are ye? It's good to have you here. Those who've joined me before, you're welcome. And those who are just joining me for the first time, you're also welcome. So I created this podcast so that we could look through the Bible from cover to cover. I didn't want to be alone in my quest to know more about the Bible and to read the stories for myself. You see, I believe that our experiences are different, our exposures are different, the way we process information is different. So why don't I just read this thing myself and see what it says? Who knows? I'm able to draw some quite interesting perspectives that I've never heard anyone explain before. And it's been a fantastic ride so far, you see. Today is day 233. And believe you me, I have seen some things that I've never heard anyone teach. And I remember thinking, why didn't anyone not see it this way? It's so clear to me, you know. So that's why I'm doing the Bible in 1 year. So if you're curious about the Bible and you want to get to know more, why don't you read it for yourselves? I always leave the scriptures that we read in the description box so that you could check out the scriptures that we read and share your thoughts in the comments as well. I don't want to do this alone, so that's why I'm doing it with a live audience. And I've enjoyed every bit of it. Even though there are days that I find it tough to do, and there are days that life happens and you find yourself not so great shape, but it's something I haven't looked back on, I haven't regretted. I love every bit of it. So today is day 233. We have 132 days to go. And we have finally entered the book of Job. Job. So Job is a man whom, if you ever hear anything about Bible stories, you heard was besieged with like maximum bad luck pro max. And so, but then we're introduced to another side of the Bible that is not particularly physical for the first time. If I recall, all the other stories are narrating the lives and of the Israelites. And anyway, so let me get to it. Every single day we use this daily Bible study guide, and we follow a structured plan that allows us to look at an Old Testament, a New Testament, a Psalm, and a proverb every single day. So today we're looking at Job, chapters 1 to 3. We'll be looking at 1 Corinthians chapters 14, the first half of chapters 14, and of course Proverbs 21 verses 25 and 26. Okay, so I went ahead of myself, so I see you there. Say something and let me know where you're watching from. Thank you for joining me today. So Job was a man, besieged with bad luck pro max. Like, I haven't seen anyone have this kind of bad luck, like the kind of bad luck that Job has. But let's just see what really transpires. So like I was saying before I commenced, we were introduced to another aspect of the things in the Bible. All the stories we've been reading have been physical stories of the Israelites, and then of course of Jesus when he lived and then of Paul trying to establish the churches and create order and administrative duties around church life. You know, this is the first time we are introduced to something else outside of the physical life. Okay, so there was a man called Job who lived in a place called Uz. He had a lot of integrity. He was a man of high integrity. He feared God and he avoided evil. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, and was a very wealthy man. 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camel, 500 teams of oxen, 500 female donkeys. They didn't tell us how many male donkeys he had. 500 female donkeys and many servants. He was super rich. And his sons, well, I guess you could call them Nepo babies. They were children of a rich man, so they partied all the time. His sons took turns to host parties, and they invited their sisters over to their houses all the time for their endless parties. And every day, whenever the parties were over, Job would like quietly just try to do sacrifices just in case the kids acted up. Maybe there used to be wild parties, and Job was like, oh God, God, please don't take it out of my kids, you know. So he would offer sacrifices in case any of his kids may have sinned, and he did that regularly. Okay, so enter a completely new scene, something that I haven't seen in my 233 days of reading this book. We see a courtroom. We see a courtroom. So I write here, first test, the heavenly court. God and members of God and members of the council. I don't know who those people are. God and members of the council were presenting themselves, and the devil also came. So God is like, hey, devil, accuser. So they refer to him as the accuser in the book of Job. And the accuser shows up. Where have you been? And he says, here and there, going up and down, patrolling the world, watching everything going on earth. So God is like, have you seen my servant Job? He's like, yeah, who doesn't know Job? The only the richest man in the East. Yes, we know Job. I know him. I've been watching him. And God says, don't you see how full of integrity he is? He pleases me. Hi Kim and hi Sanusi. I see you. Thank you for joining me today. So he says, oh yeah, you've seen Job, right? Spotless guy, isn't he? And then the devil goes, yeah, I've seen Job, but he's spotless with good reason. And God like, what do you mean? You protect him. You made him rich. You keep him protected. Why won't he love you? You know, if you took all of that away from him, I bet he'd curse it to your face. God is like, I'm very well, thank you. I'm very well. Kim, I'm very well, thank you too. Sanusi, I'm doing very well. I hope you're doing well as well. Yes, I'm doing well. All right, so he says, so God's like, I bet you he'd curse it to your face if you take all of those things away. All right, go ahead, test him, do whatever, just don't kill him, okay? And devil is like, yeah, I won't. And so now we go back to the human sin. In one day, like he couldn't even wait. He took it too far. He didn't even wait to just do this little by little, you know, so that Job would be confused what's going on. I'm glad. I'm from Nigeria. Oh, Sanusi, you're from Kaduna? Oh, interesting. I'm from Nigeria. I'm currently based in Abuja, Nigeria. And I'm actually getting ready to hop onto site. So I'm an architect and I go to site to get some work done. So I just wanted to do this before I step out. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so let me get back to the story. So in one day, as his kids were in their usual party, things start to go wrong. One group arrives at his father's house. Sir, we were raided by animals and our farm hands were killed and everyone else was killed. I was the only one who escaped. While Job was still processing that information, another person arrives. He says, Sir, fire had burnt all the sheep and all the shepherds. I'm the only one who remains, and I came home to tell you. The third person arrives. Raiders have stolen all your camels and killed all the people who kept the camels. I only escaped. Now we're seeing a pattern here, right? Yeah. And so he says, and then the next person says, sir, something terrible has happened. What? There was a fire. The house collapsed on the children. There was a fire and the house collapsed, and all the children are dead. Oh my God, Job, of course, at this point, Job must have been in terrible shock. He gets up, he rents his outfit, and he yells, oh my God, and then he shaves his hair, and then he kneels down, and he worships God. And he starts to say, naked I came, naked I will return. The Lord has given, and the Lord has taken. Praise God. And in all of this, Job did not sin against God. Then enter a new sin, the heavenlies again. So that whole scene plays out again. God was sitting with the council, the devil appears again, And God starts a conversation with the devil again. And he says, did you notice that Job did not sin despite all that you did to him? Did you see that he didn't sin? And then the devil said, yeah, he didn't sin because I'm talking of skin to skin now. If you touch him skin to skin, he will definitely curse you to your face. And so God says, all right, okay, go ahead and do whatever you will. Just make sure you don't kill that dude. Understood? So the devil goes to town. Job wakes up the next morning and he was ill. And his wife was upset. She curses him. And she gets upset with him and she urges him to curse God and die. Just curse God and die. And Job tells her, don't be foolish. Come on, lady. Don't be foolish. We accept good things from God. Shouldn't we also accept bad things from God? Does this mean that God brings bad things? I don't think so, but I think that was Job's understanding. Anyway, Job is completely besieged with ill health. He breaks out in pus, disease, sickness, like he's just a shadow of himself. Anyway, soon the news goes round. I mean, the terrible thing that has happened to Job, you have it. I mean, most people will run away from you, but a couple of people will come around. So 3 of his great friends came visiting. They came visiting. One of them was called Eliphaz, the other one was called Bildad, and one was called Zophar. I didn't bother. They're all from different parts of the world, or countries, or towns, because they didn't come from the same place. I didn't bother to list that here. In deep grief, they couldn't believe how Job looked. He was a shadow of himself. And so they just sat with him for 7 days. No one spoke. They just sat with him and mourned, because this calamity, man, it was indescribable. The grief, the pain, the excruciating loss. I mean, they probably were thinking in their minds that Job will probably soon die. Let them just sit with him. Anyway, they sit with him for 7 days, unable to say anything. Soon, Job began to lament. Job is like, erase the day of my death, the birth. Let no light shine. So there's a whole lot of dialogue that happens here, but I just pick a few things just to help you understand the depth of what Job was saying. He's basically saying, erase the day of my death. I wish I was never born. I wish I was still born. I wish that my mother did never give birth to me. Go into the realms of the spirit, blot out the day that I was born, erase it completely, erase my soul, He went on and on, just in deep, unbelievable grief. Let that day be childless. Let people who can curse Leviathan. So Leviathan is some sort of sea mystical creature, and there are people who know how to curse Leviathan. He says, let those who are experts in cursing Leviathan curse that day that I was born. Oh my God. I should have been a stillborn. I would have been with the kings whose buildings now lie in ruins. Death cannot even harm the dead. Why is life given to those who have no future? Maybe he was talking about his children. If you didn't have intent for them to live, why did you even give them life in the first place? People God has surrounded with difficulty. Why did you give them life? What I feared has happened to me. It has come, and I have no peace anymore, only trouble. This is so, I when I was reading it, tears came to my eyes, and I just tried to put a little, if you see, I'm trying to be lighthearted so that I don't become emotional, because I've experienced personal loss before. When I lost my son, my second son, I lost a sister, and the most recent, I lost my dad. And even now, anytime I think about my dad, I'm still moved to tears. Okay, so let's stop there. I can't begin to imagine the enormity of what has befallen Job. And I hope that if there's anyone out there who is watching this, who is going through grief, please be comforted. Please be comforted. All right, so let's stop there and let's go to the New Testament. The New Testament, we're looking at 1 Corinthians 14, verses 1 to 17. Love should be your highest goal. That's what Paul is stressing here. He also says, I think he's trying to make a case, because there must have been this rampant desire to speak in tongues now in the Old Testament, in back in the day when he was here. And I have a so this you see why I think it's important to read the Bible yourself, because we're going to see things a bit differently from how other people present it. And I've seen something completely different, and I will state what I see at the end of this. Okay, so give me another 5 minutes. So love should be your highest goal, but also desire to prophesy. Paul is talking to the church. For you can speak in tongues. You for if you can speak in tongues, you'll be speaking to God, and people won't quite understand what you're saying, because you'll be speaking in the power of the Holy Spirit, and it'll be mysterious. But if you can prophesy, you strengthen other people other than yourself. See, tongues are personal. They are personal, and they strengthen you personally. But prophecies help not just you, but the entire church, because everyone understands what you're saying. I'd love to speak in tongues, but even more, I'd love you to speak in tongues, but even more, I'd love you to prophesy. To prophesy is greater than tongues, except there is someone to interpret the tongues. If I spoke in tongues, it wouldn't help you. But if someone was here to prophesy or teach, it would help, right? That's what Paul is saying. So even instruments are clear if the sound can be recognized. If you hear a guitar, you should be able to recognize that that's a guitar, or a flute. You should be able to recognize that that's a flute. Right? And if you don't recognize them, then it's useless to you. Right? Even thieves don't sound. If thieves don't make a sound, how would soldiers know that it's time to get to war, to go to battle? So, same thing here. Don't, because you want to speak in tongues, speak what is not clearly understood. It's like a foreign language. So since you're eager to have spiritual abilities, I understand that you're kind of like eager to have spiritual abilities. Yeah, speaking in tongues is great, but kind of like desire to prophesy even more than speaking in tongues. And that is what I'm saying. So Paul says, so I pray in tongues. I also pray in the spirit. I sing in the spirit. I also sing in words, so that I can understand what I'm saying, so that you can understand what I'm saying. Or else those who hear can't understand your tongues and won't praise God with you. They can't give thanks and won't understand, and ultimately it will not strengthen the people who hear. So that's what I think what Paul is saying here is that people should desire to minister in church in such a way that it can be understood. I think back in the time when this was going on, and it still happens a lot in the Pentecostal arm of the church, where people want to. So for those who don't know, speaking in tongues is widely understood to mean speaking in a language that is not necessarily human language. For many people, it sounds like gibberish, like stuff that people say that no one understands. So I think a lot of people were wanting to speak in tongues, and maybe somebody will get up and speak in tongues and sit down, and nobody else will understand what they're saying. So Paul was addressing the issue, saying, look, it's better to desire prophecy, so that you would prophesy in words, and we will understand what you're saying. So if you followed me for last 2 episodes, I talked about the way the tongues here was presented. Seems to me like it meant like you could speak multiple languages. So something told me, I decided, okay, I want to look at this from the perspective of speaking another language. Paul was talking about people who get up and speak in another language, and then nobody understands what they say. So they shouldn't even speak up in church, because it benefits only them. No one else understands the language they're speaking except they themselves. So except there's somebody else here who understands the language they're speaking. So I'm assuming that perhaps somebody there, maybe the church is a Yoruba church, and then there's somebody there who needs to speak Hausa, and the person gets up and starts prophesying in Hausa. There's no one else to interpret what the guy said. Keep it to yourself, and instead prophesy in the language that we all understand. So that's another way to look at it, because when I looked at it, I saw that it was listed among other things to me, along with things like administrators and stuff, when somebody can speak in multiple tongues. So I remember thinking this could be somebody can speak in different languages. However, and I think I mean, I'm not a a pastor, so I haven't done any of those things where people say I read the Greek version of the Bible or the Aramaic version of the Bible. I have a feeling that the words used for tongues here in Corinthians 14 and the ones used for tongues in Corinthians 13 are two different things. In Corinthians 12 are two different things. I think that there are two different Hebrew or Aramaic words, but to the Englishman it was interpreted as tongues, because Paul goes on to say speaking in the spirit, which is something that is newly introduced. I've not seen him say that anywhere. Speaking in the spirit is like mysterious, so that means it's not usually something that people understand. So that's where I tend to go with the popular belief that this tongues here is it's about speaking in the language of angels that people don't readily understand. Okay, and from what Paul is saying here, God will usually give the interpretation to someone else within the environment of where that tongue is being spoken. So if you're in a Yoruba church and you speak in gibberish, somebody else will probably understand and say something in words that would interpret what that other person said in tongues. So that's our New Testament today. Our Proverbs is just two scriptures that will be done in 30 seconds, and I'll see you in the next episode. I see y'all. I should have opened this, but forgive me, I was getting distracted. So Proverbs 21 verses 25 and 26. So the sluggard's cravings will be the death of him, because his hands refuse to work. All day long he craves for more, but the righteous give without sparing. So that brings our Bible reading to an end today, and I'll see you in the next episode. This has been episode 233. I'll see you soon in 234. Thank you for everyone who joined me, including the Sanusi and Kim. Thank you all for joining me today. I'll see you guys later.